How you guys doing? Welcome back. Today's lesson 32, catalysts. We've established what fundamental analysis, we've established what we're looking for. We're going to be looking for volume and volatility. And so through this lesson, we're going to be talking about all the things that lead to volume and volatility, or maybe there's just a volume spike, maybe there's just some extra volatility in the market. We're going to cover all those kinds of things and how they're brought to you as catalysts. So first today we're talking about volume and how sometimes volume just happens pre-market. Sometimes folks like a ticker, institutions buy it, hedge funds upgrade it, and volume gets crazy. We're gonna look at how that happens sometimes and then how you can play off that really well. Next, we're gonna talk about volatility and how, again, you want to see volatility to make money. What kind of volatility we're gonna see, what makes volatility happen, right? And we're gonna look into that today as well. We're going to check out regulations and what regulations have happened, some examples that have happened before, and how the government, state or local or federal, whatever it is, global regulations can change a market, such as legal marijuana, EVs, tighter shipping restraints, higher taxes, all those kinds of things as well. We're also going to discuss world events and, again, how you can play off those. Pretty self-explanatory. We'll go through some examples for you as well. We're also going to talk about earnings, and again, I personally do not like holding through earnings, but playing up to or after earnings is what I like to do. But earnings just give you massive volume volatility. Usually the price is baked in, but again, we're going to go over that later in this lesson as well. We'll discuss hedge fund moves and how hedge funds buying and selling is a big deal. We've talked about it earlier, but let's recover that again today. We're also going to discuss pharma plays, biotechs, pharma, all the FDA approvals, all those kinds of things. We're also going to discuss upgrades and downgrades when a hedge fund or a professional goes, this is now worth twice as much as it was before. Is that really true? Does it really help? And does it really actually push the stock price higher or lower? We'll discuss that. And then lastly, we're going to discuss foreign markets and how sometimes checking foreign markets the day before and watch them the night of can really help you the next day. And anything big happens in China, Europe, Africa, whatever it is, you can play off of that the next day. So with that being said, lesson 32, catalysts, let's get into it. So we've already established what fundamental analysis is, and what you're looking for is volume and volatility. Those two things make a V. Ironically, we're looking for volume and volatility. Sometimes volume just comes for absolutely no reason. Maybe an institution bought it, maybe there's news coming, and a bunch of retail traders or hedge funds jump in. It makes a giant price spike, and then everyone's going off the races trying to buy in. What we're looking for is to form a trend while this is going on, try and find supports, resistances, and go with that. We talked about that with the creating a runner and holding a runner lessons. We're not going to cover that in depth here, but again, that's the first goal, is to actually get supports, resistances, trend on the 1 day, 5 day chart and trace this and try and get easy, good entries on a run up. It is important to note that sometimes these price spikes have absolutely no structure at all. It's just a one go up and coming down. Don't get caught. Always use stop losses and technical analysis to protect yourself. All the catalysts below do lead to volume, but again, sometimes it just kind of happens by itself. I got some examples. Let's look at a few. So this is FULC. It ran yesterday, and again, we're on the 1 day chart. Each one of these is about 4 or 5%. You can make a really beautiful trend line. I mean, you can come through. It's not going to be perfect. I think most swing trades have better trend lines, but we could see just like that with a duplication come up. We can see just like this. You had a really nice chart going, and of course you had different patterns. You had maybe like a pyramid forming here, a sideways triangle forming, breaks out. You got some other things going on, a new trend lines forming up here, whatever it may be. But we can see even on the lower time frames when volume comes, you get really, really nice 1 day, 5 day charts just like this. Most times there is a catalyst, but again, we covered all this and how to hold a runner. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but again, zooming in is huge. Trying to find supports, resistances, and trend lines massive, and you can day trade just fine when you have volume. This then leads to volatility. You're not going to make money in the market without volatility. The reason I like swinging is because swinging's volatility is a bit slower, right? I need maybe a few 100,000 in one direction to move it up and then move it down. It goes nice and slow. Stocks like AMC or GameStop right now have 40, 50 million trades in one single day. The volatility can be absolutely insane. And so you can definitely capitalize off of that. I personally don't, but you certainly can. And again, you need volatility to make money. My only issue is that volatility for a beginner is that they get in over their head. They think they're gonna be like, oh, I can speed up the process of holding with more volatility. Yes and no. I'm already worried that most beginners who are not good with supports, resistances, trend lines, and emotional mental analysis are going to buy a very volatile stock and be just fine. I don't think that's the case. So if you are more veteran, great. A beginner, sure, you need some volatility, but the more you zoom out, the more macro you zoom out, the slower it's going to go and the better for you, I think. So those are the two things we're looking for. The first thing that leads to volume and volatility are regulations. You're going to see that the SEC, the federal government, state governments will have news and new laws that will push volume and volatility to and from different tickers and sectors. There are some rules and laws like the PDT rule or the wash rule in themselves that are great examples of this. You know, if you have under $25,000, you can't day trade more than 3 times. That is a great rule of volume and volatility, because some tickers that breed and need these day trades now get less of them, right? Or the wash rule of taxes, that's the same exact way, right? So you have to think about things like that. You also have things like the federal government, such as policies and speculation of where they're going to spend their money. That's why in October, institutions and the market go up, because Biden in 2021, if he makes it that far or whenever he gets reelected or whatever, if Biden says, hey, I like EVs, hey, I like marijuana, hey, I like this, I like that, I like stem cells, institutions hear that and they're going to invest. That's why from November, December, and January, we have our best months, right? So while you're looking for tickers to buy into, you have EVs, marijuana, regulations on oil or lack thereof, endorsement of solar power, stem cells, COVID vaccines, for example. All these things stated by the government can lead to massive, massive plays. Again, before I check out 2 or 3 quick examples, it is important to note that the government with Biden, whoever the president is, their budget, the legislative branch to him, is going to be released in October and signed then. That is why October, November, December, January are always really good months, and usually why August and September are kind of trash, because a lot of institutions are moving money around and speculating what we're going to be buying into. So keep that in mind, that not every month is created equally. We'll cover that later as well, don't worry. With that being said, let's check out 1 or 2 plays and see where some big news came out and moved a stock from regulations. Let's check. So this is Tilray. If I were to ask you where you think most of the marijuana hype from where they thought it was going to be legalized came from, you'd probably assume over here, and you would be correct. Whenever that news of marijuana being legalized in the government by itself, it ran up almost an easy, 777%. Since then, if you were to held, it'd still be up about 51. But again, you can see it really ran up, crashed down, now it's coming back down. But the hype alone of folks thinking, hey, we're going to have legal marijuana recreationally and maybe medically everywhere, sent the stock skyrocketing, right? Let's check one more. So this is Royal Caribbean. I'll give you the charting real quick. We can see that Royal Caribbean is going to be a cruise line. You can even go back 10 years and see, hey, this is going to be doing well. COVID strikes, it absolutely plummets. And then, of course, over here, it's making good gains back up. Again, really nice, easy trend line right there we were following for the longest. But even over here, the reason we had this massive spike of 50% is because the government reopened up everything and they legalized cruise ships again, saying they're totally fine, and the price absolutely skyrocketed. So if you knew that piece of information that morning of or the day before, you could have hopped on Royal Caribbean, you could have hopped on Carnival, Disney, cruise lines, whatever they were, and made a killing in just a few days. So what the government says does matter. Just like our last lesson, it's so important to remember this. Do not be emotional. I know you may have really strong ties to one party or the other, or no party and hate both. All fine opinions by me. But if you're going to be so up your own butt about what side is more important to you in the stock market, you're going to have much less fun, because you're not going to see these things developing. You could hate who you want to hate, love who you want to love, but again, the fundamental news doesn't change. If it was Trump, Biden, Obama, Bush, whoever pushes or stops something, it does matter. Keep it unemotional, stay on target, and again, what the government says and the regulations that they say does really matter and affects stock price mightily. Always remember that. So the second thing that moves stocks largely through catalysts are world events. Now, I'm not going to go over specific tickers for this one. It's pretty obvious what we're talking about, but something like COVID, something like the Olympics, big old sporting events with sports gambling, maybe scientific discoveries like going to Mars or curing cancer, whatever it is, these things are huge. This is very obvious. I wanted to cover it very briefly, but you have to stay on top of world events. It may not affect the OTCs, over-the-counter tickers. It may not even affect the sectors that you're looking at, but it will definitely impact the larger macro indexes. If COVID 2.0 or Delta at this point happens again, we can see markets tank. You could be the best trader ever. If you're not shorting, you're going to lose money. Some news cycles when it comes to military stuff, like when it comes to Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Russia, whatever it is, these things do.